Hello everyone, and now welcome to Game 2 in this series between Morrow versus the STC. Game 2 taking place here on Whirlwind. This is Game 2 in a best of 3, and I will not say that number again, hopefully, as you guys should probably already know. Now, Morrow has spawned as the red Terran on the top right-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, STC has spawned as the blue Terran on the bottom right. Now, Terran versus Terran matchups, if Game 1 was any indicator as to the current meta, we are in for perhaps a little bit of a long haul here. The game has really transitioned away from any sort of early harassment that I can see besides hellbat harassment. Hellbat harassment is one of those things that either deal terrible damage or just fails absolutely terribly. I guess that is true for all sorts of harassment, but it's one of those things where for some reason those hellbats are so slow in that hellbat mode that they can't really escape. They're more sent in as suicide bombers to try and just torch a bunch of SCVs, and we'll see if that will be the case once again. Now, both players this time around opting to go for a command center first. You can tell, and you can take a look at it by the fact that there is still no barracks, and this is a bit of safe play here on a map as large as Whirlwind. Whirlwind, the only map where you can actually spawn in one of 4 locations and your opponent can be in one of the other 3. And because of the large walking distance between these bases, both players feel fairly confident that they can defend any sort of aggression. Proxy barracks is nearly unheard of. You could try to build a barracks in the center, but even then, your walking distance into your opponent's base is still rather large. We can see that an SCV will be building on the front door here. Meanwhile, Morrow is going to be building right down over here as well. So a little bit of choke points on both sides as the refinery is already done. The timing on the refinery should be that you can start your factory right as your barracks completes so that you do not hold up any of your tech. Very smart builds coming in from both sides, but this will mean a delay for orbital commands on both sides as well. Command centers nearing completion. You can see that both sides are sitting at 18 over 19, 19 over 19. They will be supply blocked for just a moment, and then the command center will be completed and they will just be hunky keen peachy dory. Now, are we going to be seeing those factories come into play? I do believe so. Double upgrade to orbital commands and perhaps training up a marine. That would be my best guess in terms of what we see. Yep, double to orbital commands, 1 factory, 1 marine, as the SCV now on the move. So both sides, once again, very similar builds. And whenever you see a mirror match like this, the player who micros better is generally the winner. I know that seems like an obvious statement, but if both players are executing the same strategy, obviously the player who is able to maximize each particular unit will come out the victor. We are going to see this SCV head all the way across the map and not find his opponent. Now, STC does have a 50-50 shot of trying to find out where his opponent is. Meanwhile, we know that Morrow is currently looking in the wrong direction as well. All we can see so far is that there are going to be bunkers down. Marines are going to be in position to shoot down at SCVs. And then it is then going to come to the point where STC needs to figure out what he wants to do in terms of the long game. You can see that the Marine now going to be pushing himself into that bunker there. The Marine and Morrow now backing off, and both sides still have yet to spot each other. Armories coming in. Starport now coming in as well. There's a reactor coming in once more by the barracks. It will be double training hellbats and medevacs again. All of this off of 2 bases. It does work out fairly well. I do believe you need that 3rd gas in order, or 3rd and 4th gas in order to continually train up units. There's the Hellion engagement there. Who's going to come out ahead? Both sides taking a bit of damage on those Hellions, as Hellions do take a bit of time to stop and acquire their target before they're able to get that shot off. Hellions now looking to back off here. We're going to see 4 Hellions as we are now double training up hellbats again. However, Morrow is slightly supply blocked, while STC will have double hellbats on the field rather quickly. Both sides getting those supply depots. Engineering bay already down for or nearing completion by Morrow. I don't see an engineering bay by STC, hence no missile turrets or sensor towers, as the sensor towers will probably be placed down here and here to make sure that there are no hellbat drops. That would be perhaps the smart call there on both sides, as we do see a barracks floating off in the corner, making sure to be an early warning system if any units do try and come in. Coming back around, hellbat, first one is on the way, and we are looking at a second hellbat, so this will be a simultaneous drop both in the main and at the natural. STC able to get to his medevacs slightly faster, and this is very, very true in StarCraft 2. It's not necessarily the strategy that you are trying to execute. It is how you get there, as the hellbat does drop down just in time. Hellions, however, with the superior range, getting in a lot of kills there on those hellbats, as the Viking now gonna suffer a lot of damage. There are some SCVs do get taken down, as we can see that the hellbat off over here is gonna take down another unit there. Double hellbat here, a 2-on-1 battle. This poor hellbat not gonna survive as it gets taken down. And once more, I believe we see higher losses for STC. However, 4 workers killed versus 0. And that means that, yes, we do have a 3 SCV difference between these two. So far, the Vikings now looking to do a little bit of engagement, but it is superior Viking numbers from Morrow. And STC is really putting himself in a bit of a hole now, down by about 750 losses. So far, that's one forward barracks. Both sides now sitting on 2 command centers with a third one on the way for both. STC has a little bit of work to try and get back into things, as he is, I believe he's lost about 758 more resources, but he does have a 4-worker advantage so far. All right, if at first you don't kill enough SCVs, well, try to do it again. And that does seem to be the strategy. Meanwhile, a drop now coming in as well. Vikings being brought forward. The Hellbats and the Vikings now just working together. The Vikings could have turned around and really just finished off that Viking there. Not quite sure why. Perhaps the missile turret was too much of a detractor, as the Hellbats now coming in once more. Hellions now trying to clean this up, but they need to get over a little bit faster. And oh, this could be bad news. Oh, why didn't STC actually get closer with both before he engaged? All of those SCVs just ran away. You can see another SCV could get taken down there, but this is a lot of mining time loss for a fair number of SCVs. Meanwhile, another drop happening inside the natural expansion, and STC is just turning this into Hellbat Wars 2013. Losses are still much higher for him, but I believe he just feels confident that these are units that he can afford losing. He did snipe down a medevac and a Viking just right there, as we are now looking at an orbital command about to land. So far, Morrow already has his 3rd base with a mule. He will be training up more SCVs. Meanwhile, STC opting to expand away from his opponent. Both sides deciding not to take that expansion or even this expansion here. All right. STC going to be landing there in just a moment. Refinery is coming in. Missile turrets acting as a bit of a deterrent, as the Hellbats now going to perhaps drop inside this 3rd base. No, there's nothing really there. 2 Hellbats could get off a couple of kills on some mules and some SCVs, but is it going to be enough, as some Vikings are now being brought over inside the main? This is probably where the most damage could get done. SCVs are getting torched, and rather quickly. There they go. And I know the animation looks rather large, but it is not that really as far. Oh, you can just get a turnaround and get a shot off there. That would have been a huge number of SCV kills, but the Hellbat decides to challenge a siege tank and loses that fight. Vikings now in the air. Hellbats on the ground. It looks as though Morrow will win out in this Viking war, as more Vikings now being brought over again. But oh, what is this? A fresh 2 Vikings coming in from STZ. Morrow jumping to the ground, and all of a sudden those torpedoes cannot hit the ground at all. Let's take a look. Missile turrets are down. Sensor towers. We can see a scouting barracks out in the front, as both sides really focusing on mass mech. No Widow Mines, at least not many that I see. Siege tanks now being brought forward, and the Hellbat has really been the nice unit in Heart of the Swarm that really rounded out the mech army. You needed a mech unit that did not cost a lot of gas, that could actually stand up to siege tank fire, and that's exactly what the Hellbat is. The fact that it is unarmored means that it only takes what, 35 plus 3, 38 damage per shot before you even account for armor against a siege tank in siege mode. With that 135 hit points, those Hellbats take quite a beating as opposed to, say, Marauders. Marauders get shot down in 3, while Hellbats get almost need 6 shots, I believe. 5, or I think 5 shots is enough. 5 shots, so almost a 66% increase in overall life. Vikings now being brought forward. A superior number of Vikings are together. Are the Vikings going to be able to shoot down any more units? As the Vikings are all here, there are absolutely no... Oh, there goes a Viking there. There are no Thors on the ground to really challenge this air superiority. Missile turrets will be brought into play, but all the missile turrets will do is just shoo away those Vikings, and the Vikings can just stick around nearby and then perhaps try and engage again. This is going to be another standoff fight here. Siege tanks rolling on in, but under the detection of this sensor tower off to the north, as the Vikings are now going to go in for a quick battle. Oh, there goes one Viking, a second Viking getting taken down, a third Viking gets taken down just as it's about to land, as we now see a medevac getting taken down. Wow, STC getting in some easy kills on some unsuspecting units, and he's just going to park himself right next to this starport. This could be huge. He could actually take down Vikings right as they're about to come out. No, STC decides against it and decides to instead fly right next to a missile turret. Not quite sure what that is about, as we are going to see one Viking taken down. All right, here you go. The Vikings, are they going to go into ground mode? No, they are not. STC not paying attention to this particular battle, and I'm not quite sure why. All right, more siege tanks being brought over. SCV is now coming in as well, and Morrow looks like he is very defensive, but he is going to be running up on 5 bases soon as this command center is nearing completion. Meanwhile, STC already has this command center up and running. He could upgrade it to a planetary fortress soon, as we are now going into Thors. Missile turret in the front shoots down another Viking. Finally gets a kill there on the board, as the Vikings now need to get perhaps a bit of armor upgrades. Armor upgrades will be helpful on the siege tanks and the Hellbats. Again, it looks as though, yes, this is going to be a 6 Hellbat drop inside the main. No, siege tank Hellbat drop, as this is going to be challenging to deal with. All right, all the Vikings are going to get taken down here. You can see that the supply depots are falling, as well as you can have a number of siege tanks and Hellbats pressuring here as well. There you go. More units now coming in. Vikings now going into ground mode to clean up the rest of the siege tanks. It looks like this will get cleaned up, but what is happening here? Morrow now down a base, as he is unable to challenge anything there. Vikings now trying to make its way over. It looks as though the siege tanks are up on the high ground, and this is just fighting up a hill. These siege tanks in siege mode should finish off the rest of these. No, it looks like the Hellbats will finish this off. The siege tanks not in siege mode in time, as the Vikings now trying to focus down this command center, unable to get off the necessary shots. It was able to land somehow, somehow dodging all of those torpedoes just in time. Level 3 weapons upgrades. Siege tanks will be blasting an amazing 65 damage per blast momentarily from a nasty range of 13. Let's take a look and see how this is all going to be unfolding, as the siege tanks and the Hellbats are all right here. Meanwhile, another side group of units, STC now moving in. It looks as though STC does have a massive amount of forces on the ground here, as we are going to be seeing the orbital command now trying to lift off and try and hide, as some SCVs are now on the run. But this is opening up things straight down the middle for Morrow. Morrow could catch a lot of units off guard here. There is one barracks now trying to retreat, as the siege tanks and Vikings need to draw a line in the sand. STC does have 6 units here, and now we see a bit of a counterattack, a counter push now coming in as well, as the Vikings are going after more units. Here's the major attack force. Both sides are engaging. Vikings are in the air. Vikings in ground mode. Siege tanks now getting in and out of siege mode. Not quite sure who's winning this battle, as there are siege tanks now in siege mode just as Vikings land on top. Morrow now with a massive army at STC's front door, but the same could be said for STC, as SCVs are just going straight into a meat grinder that toasts them up. All of those SCVs being brought straight to their death. 71 workers killed. That was not a good move by Morrow. It did not buy that much time. No time at all, considering all of that splash damage. Siege tank now trying to engage here. Perhaps STC is going to be losing. Yes, he does lose that one siege tank there, but that one Thor will get taken down momentarily just outside of combat range. So far, STC looks like he's going to be coming out ahead. He has a larger force and he has more units. But what is this now? STC and Morrow, both sides just needing to siege up here. More siege tanks being brought over, and units now being turned back around. Is it going to be enough? One siege tank walks straight into its death as well. One siege tank by the STC trying to hold off this large army. Vikings and siege tanks now making their way off to the north. Morrow trying to hide all of his units. He does not want unnecessary losses, as new siege tanks are being brought into the 6 o'clock position. So far, Morrow is going to be unable to move from this position. He wants to make sure he traps STC inside his base, but the problem is that he has now a large group of units challenging him at one of his bases as well. SCVs now trying to run away. It looks as though this siege tank is going to get in more kills. Hellbat already up to 2, as the Vikings and the siege tanks are now being brought over. STC now bringing in some more units here. And is it going to be enough? It looks like all those units will be backing off, and this group of Vikings could easily just land and sit on top of this group of siege tanks here. Just as, nope, it is going to be Hellbats, and the Hellbats are going to be focusing down many of these units. All right, Vikings now being brought over. Siege tanks now coming in. Morrow with a 5 supply advantage, but severely behind in terms of income. Income is 2,000 to 400. Army is 60 supply to 83. Morrow needs to finish this game quickly, otherwise STC will take the victory. You can see siege tanks now dropping straight up on top of Morrow's on top of the choke point that Morrow had so quickly defended, and now the problem is that Morrow needs to be in 3 places at once. This planetary fortress, this orbital command, and this planetary fortress as well. And the longer this game goes, the more that STC knows that he has this game, and that's why it's a smart decision for him to actually be spread out across so many bases. Morrow doesn't know about the additional bases at all. Otherwise, he would have straight up attacked them instead. Morrow's now down by 5 supply, thinking that perhaps if I just clean up this one base, he'll come out ahead, but that is definitely not the case, as some missile turrets are pushing back another orbital command. 102 versus 104. Morrow looking extremely strong with this force, but as I mentioned earlier, he needs to be everywhere at once. Morrow now trying to retrain, rebuild, resaturate everything, as the Vikings are now trying to clean up. Let's take a look at this over here. Hellbats looking every which corner to see if there's extra bases, and I believe, yes, he is going to find this, and now Morrow is going to have a lone Hellbat here, dealing 39 damage per attack. Meanwhile, another set of Hellbats spots this. The planetary fortress is there, though, and that's going to push it away. All right, another orbital command will be landing. Perhaps more orbital commands could land here. It looks as though STC is rebuilding all of his infrastructure back at home, and this is going to be a bit of a problem for Morrow. Morrow going to be forced to run to every which corner of the map in order to start slowing down the economy. The income tab is now still in favor of STC, as he has additional mules, I believe. Yes, 4 extra mules, because of these extra orbital commands that he was able to throw down. All right, STC needs to start mining away at this extra base here. He has an orbital command here as well. Siege tanks now going to blast away at the planetary fortress. SCVs could easily keep that up and operational, and that's all he needs to do. He needs to buy himself time. If he buys himself time, he has the economy to rebuild those Hellbats and really place down a bit of pressure. Also, Marines could be popping out of this barracks as well to force the SCVs to come off the mineral line. So far, the planetary fortress is doing what exactly it's supposed to, buying himself time. And what is this? Vikings are now being brought over. Perhaps landing on top of these siege tanks would be a good call. But STC doesn't need that any longer. He has a very large force. Hellbats now coming in. Planetary fortress will stay up. And now what is going to be happening? It looks as though Morrow was able to macro up a decent sized army to put pressure here at the center 4.5 location, but the siege tanks will end up forcing at least a liftoff as the planetary fortress will get taken down. That is a lot of damage to be had. SCVs all getting destroyed, but Morrow now with the larger force, or sorry, excuse me, STC now with the larger force, looks like he's going to be able to clean up Morrow, not realizing that there's an expansion here as well, just taking so much damage all across the map. SCV is trying to run away. It looks as though a couple of them will get taken down. No, Hellbats able to reinforce as another ground force now coming in as well. All right, this red army trying to reinforce. Hellbats cleaning up many of the bases here, and we can see that Morrow needs to open up this choke point to make sure that he does not fall apart when trying to charge up this ramp. Here we go. Hellbat could just drop straight up right there. There is the engagement. No, too many siege tanks. Hellbat's not going to be dropping in. Is it going to be enough? There is the attack as the Hellbats in the back are taking down the siege tanks in the back. Last lone siege tank by STC was cleaned up there, but we still see a larger army, I believe, by STC. Not by much, but it is still growing. All right, resources really have to do. The income, how quickly you earn your money is, and how quickly you spend it, all very, very important in StarCraft 2. Siege tanks now being brought over here. STC actually having, I believe, inferior numbers, so he may end up losing a lot of this, as we now see another round of Vikings putting pressure here. Vikings in the air attempting to take down the orbital command. SCVs are attempting to repair it, as the orbital command is just taking a beating. SCVs will not be able to land there, or sorry, the orbital command will be able to land here in just a moment, and it looks as though, yes, it is going to land. All the Vikings going to go into ground mode now and just pick off the SCVs again. Meanwhile, siege tanks in siege mode gonna force Morrow to try and siege up to exchange well once again. You can see that STC is bringing out more units to finish everything off. And yes, I do believe the GG is coming in. Oh, Vikings now going after the orbital command again, forcing it to land. And this is not a good spot. Morrow does give the GG as STC takes game 2 in this best of 3. Now, obviously, there is no game 3 in this best of 3 since STC had won it 2-0. But stay tuned for an anti-spoiler cast once again. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.